Hello, everybody. I am so glad that you are with us. We love being able to bring you the stories of inventing in America, made in America. And this segment of this third hour of Home Talk USA, we have got Greg Owens, made in the USA. All right, Greg, you're going to correct me on all of those thes and ins and everything and tell me exactly where I'm going wrong. But you know what? We've got this hour, this third hour that Michael and I have added because of ASD Market Week last year. Before we left for the show, Michael told me he wanted the third hour of Home Talk USA to be about products made in the USA. He was adamant. And I said, you know what? Let's see what we can do. And I had the pleasure of meeting one of the Buckners. And that is who your guest is today. So I met the Buckner brothers from Made in USA. And they introduced us to you, and we brought you on to be part of the Home Talk USA family. So it is a pleasure, gentlemen.
Well, thank you, Rita. And they might as well be brothers. It's Brad Winnings and Don Buckner.
Okay.
I think they've been sort of connected at the hip for how many years, Don?
7 years. 7 years now.
7 years. Seems like 7 minutes probably, but maybe not. So anyway, welcome to the show. And before we get started, I wanted to do a shout out to one of our sponsors. Let's start with this company that Rita, you're familiar with, Lion Energy. They make these things that are solar powered portable generators. And, you know, I have a gas powered generator at home. And I'm one of the few people that's fortunate enough to have 500 gallons of gas sitting there because we live on a farm. So I'll probably never, if I ever have to use 500 gallons of gas in my generator, we got a bigger problem than generators. But imagine you're out there camping and, you don't want to lug around a bunch of gas or you have a problem like you had where you were trapped on the top of the mountain, Rita, and couldn't get down to get more gas if you needed it. Well, these portable powered generators, they're solar powered, so they'll never run out of juice. And they're available at this company called Lion Energy. So if you go to lionenergy.com, check them out. Really neat product. Moving on, Don, welcome back to the program. I think you were one of the first people that I had on, weren't you?
I believe so. I could have been actually the debut, the very first.
Yeah, that was, seems like forever ago. It wasn't quite 7 years, though. But kind of wanted to start out today. I haven't caught up with you since the election, and wow, that was an interesting day for American manufacturing, wasn't it? I wanted to get your take on the election first, and then we'll talk a little bit about what changes you would anticipate happening that will benefit American manufacturers, and go on with the conversation from there. So, Don, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, and that's a sweeping question. We will probably see a 180 degree turn in the way that trade is done, how we treat manufacturers, and how we help manufacturers, and how we recognize manufacturers as being a significant part of our economy, probably the backbone of our economy. So it's great that we're going to have someone or an administration that leans heavily into manufacturing and understands their significance.
Well, I mean, expand that a little bit. I mean, what do you think the major changes are going to be? Are we going to see actual movement on things like tariff and de minimis and all these things that have really sort of kind of happened, but a lot of loopholes going on there? How fast do you expect, for example, this universal tariff and perhaps a larger tariff on China to go into effect?
So I think there's interesting, some of the motivations for these tariffs are not actually to protect U.S. manufacturers. They're actually being used for leverage to secure the border with Mexico specifically. So it's interesting that they're using economics to control the border, and that's one of the most significant ways to do that. And then they've been threatening China with, if they start to threaten Taiwan, that we would impose a tariff. And there's a lot of different aspects to this that really hasn't even been considered in the past as leverage. But those tariffs actually are leverage It can be used in a multiple of ways to leverage other countries, even to the point of using the U.S. dollar internationally. And so that that is some of the leverage that's being used, and or at least being talked about as changing world economy, basically. And so I think that the president and his staff are not afraid to use a hammer. They're not afraid of what people have called a trade war. Um, there would be some challenges in those situations. There may even be some price increases. However, I do believe there's enough margin when a retailer buys a product internationally, they're paying less than half of what they would pay for a product here in this country. So for the most part, I think they would absorb most of those tariffs just to maintain market share. The worst threat that we have in this situation currently, in my opinion, is Temu. Temu and Shein and even Amazon now direct from China. If you have direct from China shipments, the money goes directly to China, the product ships directly to the consumer. Nobody in the middle of that gets any money. No taxes are collected. I'm not even sure if they're paying the sales tax. So there's I call it micro dumping on a macro scale.
Hmm.
So that is set to destroy, and they sell products for about 25% of what a product would normally sell for here in the United States. So very enticing for consumers to do that. But the motivation is not profit. The motivation is to destroy American business. And so if you look at and it's subsidized obviously by the CCP. So the objective is to destroy American businesses. And because American businesses can't pay taxes or go out of business, it ultimately destroys the American government, our government. So there's no taxes being collected. So it's an undermining of our country. And if that has to stop, there's a nuance to that situation with Timu, and that is that actually our post office is part of a treaty, 100-year-old treaty of shipping
Hmm.
parcels around the world at a subsidized rate. So technically, the taxpayer is subsidizing shipments from China to the consumers in this country that are actually putting businesses out of business. So technically the businesses that are being put out of business are subsidizing those shipments. So it's a
Crazy.
nefarious situation, and whoever he appoints as postmaster general is going to have a really big play in that arena. And so that is one of the loopholes that has to be changed. If because they can ship it to this country cheaper than you can send a package across the town. So it's a disaster in the making. And so we have to turn that around. So there's a lot of different things like that. De minimis, you mentioned de minimis. De minimis is that $800 hole where anything can be shipped into this country without a tariff. And so that allows products to be brought in this country without any tariff. Um, it's maintained by things like people like Amazon and Walmart and those companies that want to bring products in at that low cost. And if you're a politician, you obviously want to get reelected. So those are the companies that help support those politicians and get them reelected. So they maintain that de minimis loophole so they can get reelected. It's a really sad situation that a lot of our politicians are not protecting U.S. manufacturers as a whole. And when you have other countries becoming the largest lobby group in the D.C. area, then it becomes who controls our government? Is it us, the people, or is it these lobby groups? So we have to. It seems like this was a referendum. This last election was a referendum by the American people to turn that around. And so at some point, I think there's going to be um, a lot of changes, provided that the administration's does what they say they're going to do. I think they're getting some of the right people in the right places to make some of those changes. They're not afraid to make those bold changes.
Yeah, Don. we're going to have to take a quick break here, but when we come back, I want to further this conversation and talk a little bit about what from my perspective at least, and get your take on it, we can actually expect from some of the cabinet appointments that the president-elect has made. This is Home Talk USA on the King Broadcasting Network. I'm Greg Owens here with Don Buckner from MadeInUSA.com. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. This is Home Talk USA on the King Broadcasting Network. I'm Greg Owens, and this is the Made in America Hour. This segment is sponsored by Green Products. Protect your wood from future damage with Cooper Green Wood Preservative. Find it at greenproductsco.net. Don, welcome back. And when we left off, you were talking a little bit about using tariffs as a negotiating tactic. And we've read a lot about that in the news. In fact, the incoming Treasury Secretary was quoted as saying that in the past, not recently, he sort of thinks Trump is actually a free trader, but and the tariffs are all about negotiating. And quite honestly, I don't believe that. I think Donald Trump really does, in fact, believe that tariffs are a necessary thing to protect our manufacturing base for a lot of different reasons. But I guess it is kind of a concern of mine that Besant and Lutnick are two Wall Street guys. And, you know, we saw with Mnuchin during his last term that he really pushed back on him and sort of won a lot of those internal battles. I kind of get the idea that when Donald Trump was interviewing for these two critical positions, Treasury and Commerce, that he basically got a commitment from them to go forward with his tariff policies and really do something to protect American manufacturers. Do you agree with that, or do you think there's a risk that it's sort of dealt away as a negotiating chip?
Well, it just based on what I'm reading or seeing is that the number one topic that President Trump talks about is trade and is tariffs.
Mm-hmm.
It by far. So to me, that is the top of his agenda. And it's one of, if not the most effective bargaining tool that he has. And so the reason it is such a bargaining tool is that the number one economic engine on the planet is the U.S. consumer base. And so when you withhold access or restrict access to that number one economic engine on the planet, which is the U.S. consumer base, you are denying them the opportunity to benefit from that consumer base. So we have been foolish in the last 20 years to allow them to have free and unfettered access to that our economic base, and sending dollars outside this country, consequently sending jobs outside this country. So we have, I think that President Trump has wised up to that fact, and I think that he is now seeing that there's an opportunity to not only improve our economic situation within this country and our sovereignty, protect our sovereignty, but also use it as a leverage tool.
Yeah, and I can tell you, you mentioned others who are skeptical of it, and they're throwing up all sorts of arguments like inflation, which is highly overstated. Since the first term, I've been doing a lot of during the first term, and since this last term, I've been on Capitol Hill quite a bit. I can tell you, I think you'd agree with me. There's a lot of representatives, senators on Capitol Hill that have sort of turned the corner on this issue, and they're squarely behind the president on using tariffs not only as a negotiating chip, but recognizing it as a potential huge source of revenue. That and a little bit of cost cutting, and we might actually balance a budget one day. What do you think?
Well, it's more than tariffs. So we have an economic map that shows that every time a dollar changes hands in this country, a tax is collected. Okay. So
Hmm.
not only is there tariff, so if we can restrict dollars leaving this country, those dollars change hands once a week, once a month, whatever. And every time a tax is collected, we drew a map where $250,000 worth of retail sales happened. If you can believe this, $411,000 of taxes were collected.
Yeah, and that is part of the work of madeinamerica.org, right? The first organization that you did. And before we get into madeinusa.com, which is where you can actually help make it all happen by buying American made products, tell us a little bit about madeinamerica.org and how that all got started and what the pledge and different things that you've accomplished there.
So madeinamerica.org, nonprofit 501c3, primary mission is to educate the consumers the importance of spending their American dollars on American products to save American jobs, ultimately to save America. And so it helps them understand that how they spend their dollars makes a difference, and for them to be consciously aware, not just to use price and quality as a consideration for a purchase, but also raise the priority of origin as a priority for a purchase. So to consider origin as that one item to make sure that it is made in this country so they can send their dollars back to those manufacturers so they can pay their employees within those communities. 85% of U.S. manufacturers are family-owned businesses, support their communities, and distribute those dollars within those communities, many times back to the person who probably spent it to begin with. And so madeinamerica.org is educate consumers, like I said, kind of like Incredible Edible Egg or Beef, It's What's for Dinner, or any of those marketing campaigns. We would have campaigns like that. And there's lots of different messaging for different folks. There may even be somebody who subscribes to the climate change agenda. And there's messaging there that says if you buy an imported product, you are technically supporting pollution and climate change, because all these other countries have little or no environmental regulations at all. And beside the fact that a lot of them even use slave labor or close to slave labor. So by buying that and sending your American dollars, you are technically supporting that agenda.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I know that when we come back, we're going to have to take a break here, but I want to talk about what happened in our local community to our school tax base when Oneida Limited shut down their factory and we were reassessed at a much smaller value. But anyway, interesting conversation, and looking forward to getting into madeinusa.com with you here when we come back, among other things. This is Greg Owens on Home Talk USA via the King Broadcasting Network. This is the Made in America Hour. I'm here with Don Buckner from madeinusa.com, where you can buy all sorts of American-made products and be certain that they actually are made in the USA. We'll be right back after a brief message from our sponsors.
Tired of struggling just for your customers to notice you? Your business needs Constant Contact. Constant Contact's award-winning marketing platform has helped millions of small businesses stand out, stay top of mind, and see big results. With powerful tools like email, SMS, social media, and events, you'll say the right thing at the right time to sell more, raise more, and fast-track growth. Plus, everything's backed by Constant Contact's expert live customer support. So get going and growing with Constant Contact today. Try it free at ConstantContact.com.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Home Talk USA on the King Broadcasting Network. I'm Greg Owens on the Made in America Hour, here with Don Buckner from madeinusa.com and madeinamerica.org. Before we get back to our conversation, I'd like to give a big shout out to Aztec Washer, revolutionary and innovative roofing products. Seal it right, seal it tight. Find them at aztecwasher.com. Don, welcome back. And when we left off, you were talking a little about Temu and Shein, and you don't even know if they pay sales tax, which is a big deal for anybody in America who's selling throughout the United States. And, it reminds me of what happened to our local community. It's the smallest city in New York, 2,000 people. And when we bought the factory from Oneida Limited, it was assessed at somewhere, I think, 38 or $49 million. It was a huge number, and we bought it for a fraction of that, and thus the assessed value went way down. And our contribution, because we weren't a $500 million company, our contribution to the local schools in the form of school taxes in the local community in terms of community taxes went down dramatically to almost nothing. Can you imagine what kind of impact that has had across communities in the United States? I mean, imagine you're the city manager and you were collecting on $35 million base, and now you're collecting on $1 million base. How are you going to fund your local school? How are you going to fix the roads and the potholes and all of that? So it goes way beyond just sales tax. You pointed out, these companies that are selling directly, they've cut out Macy's. They've cut out all the middlemen here in the United States that were making their share and doing the marketing and staffing the stores. They're all gone, and now you just get a package. I remember in the first term of President Trump, he actually served notice that they were going to cancel that treaty on the post office, and our friend Peter Navarro was behind that one. And then for some reason they backed off on that, as they backed off on a couple things. I think this next go around, he's going to have people around him that are going to support those type things. At least that's my hope. What do you think?
No, the story you just told is the same story probably for several thousand manufacturers and several thousand communities that happened in the early 2000s when President Clinton signed permanent most favored trade status with China and eliminated all the tariffs that were in place. So that story is repeated many, many times, and our mission is on madeinusa.com is to reconnect the American consumer with American-made products and American manufacturers, and send those dollars back into those devastated communities like yours, like the one you're talking about, and revitalize them, because they have real challenges. The retailers today, like Amazon, Walmart, and Target, and all the big ones, they do not prefer an American-made product. In fact, they prefer a cheaper imported product. And so consequently, the manufacturers, as a rule, especially being family-owned, have a real challenge getting their products to market, getting them in front of the consumer, spending their dollars with Facebook and Instagram and all these different places to try and get in front of the consumer. And so they're really challenged to get their products to market. They can't compete with the SEO, which is search engine optimization for Google. And so they really challenge. And even if they do get their products listed on Amazon, for instance, their product is listed right next to an imported product for less money, and actually cannibalizes all the marketing, the research, the product development that manufacturer did for years and years, and it actually cannibalizes that sale. So the manufacturers, as a rule, are not a fan of Amazon because of all that type of manipulation. Plus, they fee them to death. But so the manufacturers really need a marketplace that they can put their product up and at least know that the person next to them or the item next to them is an American-made product, and it is a level playing field. And so that's our mission, is to direct dollars back to those communities and keep those jobs in this country. And consequently, it protects our sovereignty as well. We have real challenges in this country. If you think about it, 97% of our clothing is not made here. 80% of our pharmaceuticals are not made here. That's our medications. And then none of our electronics are made here. So if for some reason they cut us off today, 6 months or a year from now, we literally be naked, sick, and Neanderthals without our technology. So our sovereignty is already in jeopardy, if not already gone. We have to figure out how to get that back, and it's going to be difficult. It's going to be challenging, may even be expensive, or there's going to be some uphill battles that are going to be really unpopular, probably, because if an item costs a little more, that's okay. The price the price of a cheap product in this country or an imported product is actually the American way of life. So we have to really raise it to that point.
Yeah, and how do you put a price on sovereignty and national security? It's a pretty tough number to come up with. But one of the things, one of the decisions that you made, and I know Brad and I had several conversations, you and I had several conversations about this, is there's a pretty heavy bar to put Made in USA on your product. That means that all or virtually all of the components, anything useful in that thing has to come from the USA. So you guys did something I thought was really clever, because you go on Amazon and you'll type in flatware made in USA, for example, and like you said, you get served ads from all the stuff that isn't made in USA. They don't tell you where it's from or where it's not from because they've hidden that information. That's another topic for another day. But you've done something really clever on your side, and you've opened it up to people who are making an effort at it. Okay, maybe not everything's made in the USA, but you've got that flag that's either all red, white, and blue, or it's diagonal through it and half of it's blackened out. Explain how that manufactured in USA with some globally sourced part works and why that's so important.
So a little bit of history on the Amazon side. They actually got in trouble with the FTC for listing products as made in USA that were not made in USA. So they technically they made it very difficult or very challenging to find, or you can't even search for American made products, US made products on Amazon. So that was part of our motivation to do what we're doing. But to answer your question, so we have identified 3 different levels of product made in this country. So FTC has these definitions. One is made in USA, which means all or virtually all of the componentry is of American origin. The next one, which is a half flag, as you mentioned, half gray, half red, white, and blue, is made in USA with domestic and global materials. We like to see at least 50% of that product be domestic componentry. And then the last one is, which is a grayed out flag, is assembled in the USA. And so the FTC defines that as something that has to pass what's called a screwdriver test. It means it can't be just 2 parts screwed together. You have to add value at some point. You have to package it. You have to paint it. You have to modify it somehow. So you have to add value to that product. So consequently, you are creating jobs in this country at some level. The objective there is to create relationships with those particular manufacturers and encourage them to add more domestic componentry into their product. Consequently, they have more control over it once it's in this country as well.
Well, it was a process, unraveling, I guess, American manufacturing industrial base, and it's going to be a process bringing it back. And that's why I applaud you guys for doing this, because the first step in bringing it back is not importing the whole thing, at least doing a little bit more than turning a screw here in the United States. The second step is finding domestic suppliers so you can buy some of those components and start making it more and more American. And the final step being, we have kind of an advantage in our business because we buy steel, and that's our only raw material input, and we get that from Pittsburgh or from Tennessee. But imagine, trying to make a toaster or something like that, where you got multiple components and you're trying to find a wire and there's no wire manufacturer here. Giving those people a place to sell on your site and clearly identifying it so it's honest is, I think, just a great move.
Well, thank you. We've actually gone a step beyond that as well. So a lot of these manufacturers so we've identified each product as made by a small business or a woman-owned business, a minority business, or a veteran-owned business. So you can actually shop and spend your money with those particular demographics or personas. If you want to spend money with veterans, you can do that. If you want to spend your money with a woman-owned business, you can do that, or a minority-owned business, you can do that. So our mission is to help consumers spend their dollars in this country with whatever preference they have there. We really are. That's our mission. Okay,
well, we're going to have to take a quick break here, come back with the final segment. This is Greg Owens on the King Broadcasting Network, Home Talk USA. This is the Made in America Hour. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. This is Home Talk USA on the King Broadcasting Network, the Made in America Hour. I'm here with Don Buckner of MadeInUSA.com. Before we get back with Don, this segment was sponsored by Bond Products. For DIY carpet bonding, whether you're putting down the whole carpet yourself and want to do it like a professional, or whether you're making a repair, there's only one InstaBond. Find it at bondproducts.com. Don, welcome back. And when we left off, we were talking a little bit about why consumers should go to MadeInUSA.com and buy their products, how important that is to support domestic manufacturers. But I know another big challenge is getting manufacturers to list their products on your site. We just went through the biggest selling period of our company, which is the sort of Thanksgiving through Cyber Monday period. We do unbelievable amount of sales there, but then it's followed up by Christmas, which is right around the corner, and what a wonderful place to find all those Christmas gifts. But for those, a lot of people don't like to shop at Amazon. They're looking for Made in America products, and they want some place that's vetted for that. One of the biggest challenges that Brad have had, and I've tried to help out when I can, is convince people to list their products on your site. So what are the advantages of doing that versus listing it on Amazon or trying to go direct?
Well, thank you for asking the question. It's probably multiple answers, but one of the primary answers is that, like I mentioned earlier, is that at least they know their product is going to be listed next to another American-made product, so it's a level playing field. Everybody pays pretty much the same wages. They have the same rules they have to abide by, same taxes they have to pay. So it's a level playing field there. The other reason is that we are going to be that go-to destination for people to easily find, identify, and purchase an American-made product. So we need them. We need more manufacturers. We have about 400 manufacturers to date. We would like to have 10,000 manufacturers listed. Because there's 250,000 U.S. manufacturers, and we'd like to have at least 10,000 of them listed on our site so that we can have a full breadth of products. Now, for Christmas, especially if you're looking at stocking stuffers or gift cards, it's great to have a gift card, and we like to say, have a Made in America Christmas. That's our catchphrase. You can buy the gift card and give that to someone, and then at least those dollars that are being given or will be spent on an American-made product. So you can go to the website and easily buy those gift cards and do that. If you don't know exactly what somebody's going to want, you can print that out, put it in somebody's stocking if you want. Those are beneficial ways. And then there's also a lot of different products on there as well that may appeal to that person that really is a patriot and likes to have an American-made product. And there's pride in giving an American-made product. So when you give that gift, you can say that's American-made product. And there's a different feeling from giving an American-made product to receiving an American-made product over a Chinese-made product or a foreign-made product. It doesn't have that stigma of being, here's a cheap product that you're going to throw away in a year or two. So there's a lot of reasons for a manufacturer to want to list their products with us. It doesn't cost them anything. We have no listing fees whatsoever. We don't charge them any monthly fees. There's no listing fees. So what they sell it to us for is what we pay them. And so we just negotiate a wholesale price from there, and that's how we make our revenue. So we even absorb the credit card processing. So we try and make it very easy. If the manufacturer builds it and boxes it, we'll handle everything else.
Right, and I can vouch for this from the perspective. Our flatware is listed on your site, right? So when I first started talking to you guys about what it would cost and what that wholesale price is and all that, you compare that to what you're going to pay to, for example, sell your product in traditional retail at a Macy's. They're going to want you to discount it by 70 or 80% off of your regular price. That's a pretty big bite. We would have to sell below our cost to do that, or we'd have to charge such exorbitant prices that nobody would actually buy it. But it's very accessible in terms of letting you guys handle the credit card fees, which are what, 5-6%, the marketing, and then creating a space where people can go and feel confident. Unlike Amazon, that if they type in, something made in the USA, they're going to find it. And we've got a couple minutes left, but I find things on there really interesting. My son has a dog, so I go in there and I buy dog toys. And there's other products on there like, bath products, and there's towels, and there's expensive things. What's the cheapest thing on there? What do you think the most expensive thing is on there? Do you have any idea? I'm putting you on the spot here.
Oh, well, there's some candy probably that's the cheapest. Most expensive thing on there is probably some couches. There's some couches that are over $10,000. And so we have what we call white glove service. We can deliver straight to your home with white glove service. They take it in, put it in, so forth. But those are very high quality type products. And we went to a furniture trade show in North Carolina, 1,800 vendors, and only 32 were made in USA. So very few furniture manufacturers in this country still. But there's quite a few, and there's some that are reasonably priced as well. So
I'm gonna give a big shout out for two things that are really important. If you're a manufacturer, get in touch with these guys. List your products on their site. If you're a consumer, perfect stocking stuffer. And if you're a business person like me that always gives their employees something at the end of the year, go on there and give them a gift card and send them to madeinusa.com, and it'll help out your company, it'll help out the cause, and your employees will really appreciate it, particularly if they work in an American manufacturing company. We've done it again, Don. We've run out of time. I had a list of other questions and topics that we wanted to talk about, but we'll have to pick that up next time. I'm Greg Owens here on Home Talk USA on the King Broadcasting Network. This has been the Made in America Hour. Thank you, Don, for joining us. We'll see you next week.